Murphy Daily here, back with more book reviews. It's been a while since I've done a good book review. Well, been kind of on pause. I was in a tear for a while, but for the last several months, I've had some trouble keeping up with good reading. And I would say I have gone into the depths of genre fiction, which to me is lazy reading. Genre fiction, as opposed to more challenging fiction, genre fiction, you know what's going to happen. So unless I'm trying to learn something more about that genre, I'm not really getting into it. I'm reading it because reading is just something I do, right? So let me say, here are some of the ones that I have been reading for a while. I finished the Night Angel series by Brent Weeks. I enjoyed it. I finished before that Legends of the First Empire by Michael Sullivan. He probably has a initial somewhere in there too. So these were some long fantasy genre fiction. These were long books, and I just wrote on them knowing that I was taking the easy path. I was taking a easy path, enjoying them. They were good enough. So if you also need a good ride through a world of fantasy, those are decent. I enjoyed them. Also, I almost finished Brent Weeks' Lightbringer series. Oh my god, they were so long. And I stopped short of finishing because the last book, I'm like, I can't do it. I can't. Come on. I can't do it. It was just so long. I'm like, I was kind of barely in this anyway, so I couldn't. One day it'll be waiting for me when I need a easy ride, okay? It was certainly interesting, the broken eye and this world, this magic, all this stuff going on, but I'm like, I can't do this one. I'm not willing to check out of thinking for that long. Even to finish the series, it'll be waiting for me when I need to. To be honest, I didn't stop reading the genre fiction. I still needed that for me because there's been a lot going on in my life, so I still needed some genre fiction. And what I picked up was the series Number One Ladies No. Yes, The Number One Ladies Detective Agency by Alexander McCall Smith. That guy has got a thing going. My God, these books, he writes like at least one every year. And I think there's 25 in this series. And I had picked it up quite a while ago, read a few, enjoyed it, and then put it away like years ago, I think. But here lately, I needed a nice ride. Technically, it's a mystery series, but it is not the typical kind of mystery series. It is extremely slow paced. Now, one of the things about the Number One Ladies Detective Agency is it is an exotic, I would call it, and I remember this being discussed by one of my professors in college, one of my English classes, literature classes, an exotic adventure romance. So I want to talk about that genre. The Number One Ladies Detective Agency is set in Botswana, which is very exotic to most of the readers. I don't know the population of Botswana, but it is not that large. I just know that, right? Compared to Canada and America and the UK, where I believe Alexander McCall Smith, I think he's Scottish. So the larger audience sees this particular location as extremely exotic. And so the story itself can be very boring, but the locale is exotic. So let me talk about exotic adventure stories. Early on, there was a story from Marco Polo. Marco Polo went to Asia. Do you know about this? And he was this guy who he came back and he went to Asia and talked all about what happened in Asia. The story, The Travels of Marco Polo, which actually had another name, The Million, it's a classic of travel literature. It was written in like 1300, somewhere around there. And it's a story, but it's this travel story that was really crazy. I haven't read it. Sorry, I haven't read it. I should. I'll come back and give a review of it when I do. But it's this crazy story that had all these kinds of things that were like not very true, couldn't really be true. How true were they? But everybody wanted to know what was going on in Asia because people hadn't been there. And they were totally fascinated what's happening in China and the other parts of sort of behind the edge of the universe, right? So people wanted to hear about that very old story of adventure, exotic literature. People want to hear about stuff they don't know about. Here is another example. This is a book that my husband got for me. It's an American book, a Yellowstone Reader. He got for me before we went to Yellowstone. We've been there several times. And it's a book of stories about that area of the world. Yellowstone National Park, an American park. And there, I read through it, and there were a lot of stories in here about Yellowstone, just like the travels of Marco Polo, that were not even true. Somebody wanted to write a story about this romantic, exotic area, and they're like, how else would anybody know? No one would know. Prove me wrong, right? These authors would write these crazy stories, and someone went there, and it's like they had heard about, maybe there were geysers and stuff, and they were like kind of made up some stories and said it was a story about that area. So these exotic stories, these exotic adventure stories, in a way, they kind of turned into a platform which became some science fiction. Like, let me tell you what it's like in Mars. How else would you know? Nobody's been to Mars, right? But these exotic adventure stories saying, here is this vista, this reality that you, the reader, know nothing about. And they could get into this universe, and people are writing about this. So this exotic adventure story genre has been around for a long time. And I think that the Number One Ladies detective agency is riding on that kind of platform, because Botswana is it's funny because it's very exotic. Whoa, what's it like to live with these kind of wild animals and in a world where cobras can hide under the bed? At the same time, the world that they're describing is a new sort of culture, because Botswana as a country is very young as well. So one of the things the main characters talk about a lot is how to be the right sort of citizen of Botswana. So there's this wild exoticness and also extremely conservative feeling to this particular story. So I think Andrew McCall Smith has created a beautiful environment where it's like just adventurous enough and just expected and calm enough that it's exactly what I'm looking for. Exactly what I'm looking for in this genre fiction that I'm enjoying. I'm at about number 17 of the series, I believe. Last I checked, it goes up to 25, but dude writes a new book every year, so that'll increase. I'm there for it. So when I want a thing that is very calming, but not so calming it's boring, it's just interesting enough. He's writing on all these kinds of genre platforms that people have learned to love over the years. And when it comes to genre fiction, now I'm going to get back to the purported discussion. I talked about fantasy, and I talked about the platform of exotic adventure romance, but I know what I'm getting into. I know what I picked up this book for. I know the experience I want to have. It's kind of like I'm craving this sensation right now in this book. This is kind of what I need to feel right, and that's what I'm getting. That's exactly what I want. Don't surprise me. I don't need a new thought. No, thank you. And that's what I've been doing. What I said, I'm kind of lazy reading because I got a lot going on in my life, and I really couldn't deal with big, deep thoughts. I'm not exactly proud of it, but I also know what I need. And I'm not proud of it, but I'm not ashamed of it. And as my subscribers, people that have been following my channel realize, I'm not going to shame anybody for their reading choices. I want to share with my audience here the joy of reading and the joy of experiencing exactly what each individual experiences when encountering these books. Sometimes I can go high and reach for the hard stuff, and sometimes I'm going to go for what I can reach right then. And I want to enjoy it when I'm doing it. I'm just going to eat it up. That's okay. Genre fiction is exactly what I need sometimes, and I'm still open for it. It's certainly better to read something and have some new thoughts. That's okay, because the words are beautiful. I'm there for the story, learning what it's about. Genre fiction is there for me. Thank you. God bless you, Alexander McCall Smith, and I'm sure you're making bank and you earned it. Brent Weeks, Michael Sullivan, my Lord, you can write a long book. Whew, good for you. I'm there for it. That is exactly what I need sometimes. You're feeding my hungry mind. Even if it's not the tough stuff, but I'm not always ready for the tough stuff. Genre fiction will get me what I need, and I'm down for it. I'd be interested if you know what to reach for. You can tell me the sorts of genre fiction that you know you like, maybe your what they might call guilty pleasures. Yeah, look for it. Know it. It's still reading, and it still counts. I'd love to hear what you think.